Want to introduce our guest today. Very, very interesting people, more than qualified to speak on these subjects. Our first guest, we're going to have them together because they've worked on this book together. Our first is Robert Grant. He was the CEO and president of Bausch and Lomb Surgical. He also led Allergan Medical as president. He's served on a whole bunch of boards. I mean, I could read his resume all day, but he was on Schmidt College of Chapman University, the University of California, Irvine, CEO Roundtable Steering Committee, the School of Law at UCI, the Henry Samueli School of Engineering, Octane, the Young Presidents Organization. So he has been a prodigious entrepreneur, the founder, chairman, and managing partner of Strathspey Crown LLC. That's a growth equity holding company with a broad portfolio of company and asset holdings in healthcare, energy, social media, and financial technology. He's also the founder, chairman, and CEO of Crown Sterling Limited, a next generation cryptography company based on novel discoveries in geometry and mathematics. You should see his TED Talk to understand more about it. Our other guest who is co-writing this book is Michael Ashley. I met him at a talk some years ago in Idaho. Just got back from Idaho again. And he is a columnist at Forbes. He's an entrepreneur. He has done Becker's Health Review. Michael's written nearly 40 books on all kinds of subjects. He's got 4 bestsellers. His books have been published by all the major publishing companies. He's a former Disney screenwriter, and we won't hold that against him. His work has been in Fox Sports, the Huffington Post, Entertainment Weekly, the National Examiner, and even the United Nations ITU News, and so much more. Their new book is coming out next year. It's called NeuroMined, Triumphing Over Technological Tyranny. It's going to be by Fast Company Press. Again, that'll be out in 2023. And it's about the big tech profiteering on your data, the surveillance, the incredible power that these tech companies have acquired, and how that can all be undermined with new developments. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on the program. And thank you for working on this book. I mean, this, I think, is one of the most important topics anybody could be talking about right now, because these big tech companies have just become so powerful. They're so ubiquitous in our lives. And yet you guys have good news. Robert, let's start with you. Tell us the good news. How are we going to be able to resist this techno tyranny?
I think personalized data sovereignty is the answer there. I think people are going to be able to have their own encryptions and have access to encryption technology that is quantum resistant and creates a level playing field for the individual. I believe that governments exist to actually safeguard and protect the individual rights and freedoms of citizens. And the governments derive their just power from the consent of the governed, as it states in the Declaration of Independence. And so we feel very strongly that data is an extension of who we are. And as a result of data, all the data that I have on my social media platforms and my digital footprint everywhere is an extension of me. And therefore, we believe that there really needs to be an officially recognized Bill of Rights for data that, we can protect ourselves, because if we don't, we're going to lose our ability to even change our minds on things. We have tech companies today that are basically shoveling us all into echo chambers of our own conditioning bias, because that creates more dopamine in our own biological systems. So they found a way to basically become the world's most successful drug dealers ever by basically keeping us on platforms, and they don't even have to have a farm. They don't have to have crops to maintain. They don't have to have people to maintain those crops. They've basically figured out how to manipulate human biology so that it benefits them financially. And now we're living in a world where every bit of data is the most valuable asset in the world. So data has already surpassed every natural resource on planet Earth. It's a $2.5 trillion market right now. And when you start considering the implications of this, we really need to, as individuals, start to protect and safeguard our own individuality and our own sovereignty. Otherwise, we will basically lose even the very notion of what we think it means to be an American.
Fascinating stuff. Michael, why don't you go a little bit deeper into the problem? Amazon now, I guess, basically dominates the marketplace. We've got these big tech companies that dominate our communication, even between our friends and our family. Talk a little bit about the scope, the enormity of this problem that we're dealing with the power of these big tech companies.
Absolutely, and I think it is an enormous problem. The other bigger problem is that people don't know that we have a problem.
Mm.
We've been living so long in this situation, in an untenable situation, that we can't see outside of it. And the purpose of this book, another reason that we think is such good news, is that it's finally waking people up. It's giving people awareness of the challenge we face. And so a good example of this would be found in what occurred last week when PayPal was threatening to take our money if we were disseminating what they call misinformation. Even though we know the last 2 years has been filled with misinformation, many of them get on high, right? And so, fortunately, the public caught wind of this, and even though PayPal later retracted and said that this was an error, I think it speaks to the fact that people are waking up. This speaks to the fact that there is good news, that we are rejecting the ways in which big tech and big government are colluding to control every aspect of our lives. And we saw this when it comes to, and we continue to see it when it comes to censorship, when it comes to financially deplatforming. After what occurred with the Freedom Convoy in Canada, people found out that not only did the people who participated in this event to keep our freedoms, but the people that even gave money. Imagine a lowly grandmother that gave $15 to the Freedom Convoy. Her money was taken away, her bank accounts, her checking cards, they no longer worked. And so the purpose of this book is to awaken people up to our collective problem. Right now, we are mired in culture wars, which are important to some extent, but the bigger challenge that we have is centralized control, centralized technocracy, using the forces of technology against the people by a strong contingent of centralized authority and control.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Michael. Robert, I want to go back to you. You guys in the book deal with some of these technologies, and I've spent some time looking into them. I certainly don't know nearly as much about them as you guys do, but you talk about the blockchain, the cryptocurrencies, the smart contracts, things like this. And on the one hand, yeah, we see how that could be liberating. We've seen some of these cryptocurrencies that allow people to do more relatively anonymous and easier transactions and transport stuff across borders. But I think there's also, at least in my studying of this, a double-edged sword here, right? Because these same technologies could also be used by these same totalitarians to put all of our information on the blockchain so that it can never be altered. How do we make sure that this goes our way? Right now, we got the central banks working on the central bank digital currency, so they're jumping on the digital currency bandwagon, but in a way that will be used to track us and to control us. So how do we make sure that this doesn't go in favor of the totalitarians?
I think, first of all, we have to maintain choice. And one of the things I get more concerned about than anything else is if you look at China, I think that's really the totalitarian, sort of example you were citing. They have a social credit scoring system, and they can actually determine if you're a dissident to government or not, and they'll actually fine you in a way by taking away your points on your social credit system, which makes it more difficult for you to be able to gain access to purchasing things, loans, et cetera. And so you really become, put in sort of this timeout pin, and until you conform to what it is the government wants you to do and say. So I think that the critical aspect here with digital currency is going to be to maintain a marketplace where there are options for people so that the only choice is not, the digital currency from China or the digital currency from even the central bank in Europe or a digital currency from the Federal Reserve. Those things will definitely undoubtedly exist, no doubt. But we need to make sure that we don't go down the path of over-regulating this, right, such that there are no other choices, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've now got a system where software utilities and, Bitcoin, as an example, as a store of value, can actually be traded pretty freely on exchanges, subject to certain regulations. But, are these going to be regulated by the Securities Exchange Commission, or is it going to be regulated by the Commodities Commission? This is really a subject of major debate right now in Congress. But I think the one critical aspect of this is to maintain the choice of consumers, because that's how you can basically stay away from all the faults and challenges that come along with monopolies. And effectively, a central bank or, the central agency or a central group that is, from the Federal Reserve, for example, basically creating their own digital currency and then mandating through government that it's the only one that could ever be used, that I see is very, very problematic.
Yep, I couldn't agree with you more. Michael, we're just about out of time for this segment. We're gonna go to break, but final thoughts, and also tell us how people can get the book. Can we pre-order it now, or do we have to wait until it's officially published? Tell us.
Well, you can pre-order it in just a few months. Right now, we go to the Data Sovereignty Assembly. You can check it out right there. And just to add one more point to what Robert's talking about, we can expect to find programmable money in the not too distant future, in the sense that your money will not work for you. You will not be able to use it to buy the things
You're
that
only
you
allowed to buy certain things.
That's right.
Yes.
No guns and ammunition. No more steak. Right.
And I would also advise people, we've been writing about this as well, is the social credit score is already here in the form of ESGs in America, and to please look into what these are all about as well.
Well, and the
Yep.
name of our book is NeuroMined, and that's neuro, just like neurology, mind, M-I-N-E-D.
Yep. And then triumphing over technological tyranny. Gentlemen, this has been absolutely fascinating. I can't wait to get you back on once the book is available for order. I'm telling you, I'm really, really excited. I can't wait to get my hands on a copy. And so thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for this little teaser, and we will get you back on soon.
Thank you. Great
All right,
talking
thank
with
you,
you.
gentlemen.